bird, and to fit the brain into our skull arranged itself in such a way that our jaws had to shorten, and therefore the wisdom teeth problem.
Yeah,
Yeah, and depends how you look on that. It's a problem of the sorts of what was there first, chicken or the egg, and maybe I interpret that differently. Maybe I'm wrong, but point is that it's actually consistent with each other. But the point is that our trade-off was intelligence for the raw power, and we obviously, from the point that we are now using computer technology, we choose the intelligence
right.
over the raw power of chewing.
Right. That's because so when we start to cook, we said cooking is better than eating it raw, and then over time, right? There's no need for the wisdom teeth, right? So, right, that was a direct. We had to think about cooking. We just eat. You just grab the thing and eat, right? That's simple. I think eating it raw, more power, but it's just simple. But when you cook, you have to think, right? You have to mix this, mix that. Okay. Yeah. So one of my things, right, is all right. Humans, right? So now we specified that species, right? But now, right?
Hey man, Popo coming, run.
Yeah, don't worry about it. It's gonna go on. Yeah, that's where I live. But where it says ambulance. But the because now would now there be morphological like visual? I let's say it because I can't say the word morphological. The visual differences,
Morphological.
morphological,
Mhm.
Yep.
morphological differences observed between the different species of Homo. Because if Clara is cat, then there's clearly different species. If it's that distinct, right, then yes, there's clearly a different species, right? And like a tiger is clearly different from a lion, even though they're both cats, right? So
No,
like,
they're not.
No, they are not. I think there is actually a problem with the word species here
okay,
because it
Clara,
depends how
please.
you actually look on that, and it depends on the way how you actually understand certain language. And now I'm not the one who actually should say something about that because I use different morphologies and different understanding from that than I use in English. To be absolutely honest with you, because I use my Czech words in my brain, and I very roughly translate them in English, and I understand that those quadas and stuff like that actually works a bit differently in English. But yeah, cat is a species. Uh,
Wait, hold
Cat
on.
and tiger basically are not different species, in my opinion. But it depends how you actually choose to differentiate. What are the markers of the species for you? How you actually pick and choose how to say what's a different species? Because humans have the tendency to say that they are a different races. First of all, they are not. We are all human. Therefore, we are the same. And the picks and choosings of being different are like, yeah, but I have different cultural background than you, and I think that my culture is better than yours. Therefore, you differentiate from me, and that's more culturally than it depends on the color of your skin or whatever a random denominator you pick and choose. Problem is that if you are an aggressive idiot who say that he's better than somebody else, doesn't matter what his met or hers, for example. Matter is no, you are just shaved up ape. Deal with that, and we can all be better for it. And if you think you have bad morals, debate me on that point because if I say that I want people to let other people live, don't commit acts of violence on them, then I think I have my basics covered. And some people say like, yeah, but I want to give you harm because you don't believe in the same sky day. And I'm actually very specifically using the kind of annoying word sky day here because who's yours, who's mine, and who's his? Like, I don't know. Everybody can have an opinion. And if your opinion is like, okay, I believe in this and you believe in that, and we don't have to like beat each other over head with that, then I do not care that much, if you understand.
No. We're not talking
So
about
if
that.
I'm literally too worried.
No, we're not going to that part. We're just talking about morphological and genetic, right? The cultural, religion, and social. We're kind of talking about the ethnic and the cultural, but no, we're not. We're not. This is not the reason of that discussion. Like the reason why we're having this discussion is like all right, human, like all right, so like humans, right? For the most part, they're all the same, right? But that morphological difference in bears and cats, and like they have more differences. Like the genetic pool is bigger in bears and cats, as opposed to humans, right? And I'm trying to better understand that classification,
I
right?
mean, bears and cats are more genetically closer than humans and cats or humans and bears.
No, I'll talk about bears amongst themselves. The genetic pool of bears amongst themselves. The genetic pool of cats among themselves is greater than humans, from what you guys are describing.
Well, so the genetic difference between a polar bear and a grizzly bear is more than between somebody from the sub-Saharan Africa and somebody from Northern Europe
Okay.
or Native American or any of those. But like the genetic diversity between one polar bear and another polar bear is less than that between somebody from Atlanta, Georgia and LA.
Well, you can't. Well, no, that's a migration. You can't say that. Like, use a better example.
And that
No,
was actually part of my point, but he obviously missed that, and I maybe didn't
yeah. So what
like
I'm trying
present
to
it in the
explain
best
to you
way.
is that there's a bigger population of humans. So like in regards to like there's a small population of polar bears. So like polar bears, all of the polar bears together
Right.
would be a much smaller genetic pool and would be very less diverse. But if you take a polar bear and a grizzly bear and you compare their DNA, it would be more different than any two humans. But if you take a polar bear and another polar bear and you compare their genetic codes, it would have less diversity than any two humans, most likely.
Than any two Caucasians, most likely, or like any two.
No, any two humans at all.
Yeah, any
At
two
all.
humans, any two humans outside of like, I mean, I, I suppose maybe if you took like two people from a small town where like interbreeding had probably run rampant for a couple 7 or 8 generations, but like when you're referencing like if you take somebody from St. Louis, if you take two random people from St. Louis, as long as they're not related, they will probably be more genetically diverse than two polar bears would.
What about two ethnically related people? Two polar bears are closer
Yes,
to that?
I'm saying if you took two Caucasians from St. Louis, they're geographically the same, but like even if they're generation, like even if they've been in St. Louis since let's just say 1850. Both of their families showed up in 1850. They would have more genetic diversity in those two people, those two white people, than two polar bears most likely would.
All right.
And the reason is that the genetic base of the polar bears is so much smaller
Right.
that they are actually much closely related than the two different people, even if they are basically almost the same spot of their origin.
Right.
Do you get it? Like there is much less polar bears
Right.
or grizzly bears, doesn't matter which kind of the bear, than of the human.
Right.
You need to understand that there is actually like current like
No, I
8
understand.
billions of us.
And there's like 3 million polar bears, and there's like 3 million bears. Right. No, I understand that. Yeah. No, because there's less amount, so the pool's going to be less because there are less amount of bears than people. Yeah.
Yeah. So they'll be less genetically diverse. But when you're talking about two subspecies, polar bear and grizzly bear, the genetic diversity between those two groups, because they diverged so long ago, the genetic diversity has exponentially increased through generations.
Increased, yes. And it's like,
So-
if I may, it's like when I was talking
Fuck
about
him.
the ring species problem. Now, don't imagine one valley, but imagine that they actually live in a continent that gets split in two and they drifted apart. And that's how vastly different those two subspecies of bear get. Because one of them live in completely different climate than the other,
Right.
and they never had a chance to actually randomly interact with each other. So they get vastly different, even if they are still both bear.
Wait, so at one point they look the same, but because they end up in different geographic regions, right? They start to become different because they're not interacting with each other anymore. Is that what you're trying? That's what you're saying.
They also interact with different environment. They live in different climates.
Right.
They have to deal with different problems.
Right. Right. And
So-
then if it happens, if it's for long enough, right, then they won't be able to mix. So polar bears
Yeah.
and grizzly bears, like, it hasn't been long enough, right? But like what we also said is like being able to mix and have offspring is different from species, breed, so on and so on for that. So we'll separate that. So I'll make sure I separate those two. Okay. And we'll just focus on the genetic. So okay, so with that, right? There's more. With that, I say that there's morphological differences between polar bear and grizzly bear, right? Now the same. Now is that true for our same? All right. So now before I go back to the species of hominids, right? Would we now say that polar bear and grizzly bear are two different species? Or two
No, they're
different-
subspecies.
Plus subspecies.
Okay.
Look, I don't know. Look, you need to understand that if you actually go to the species, subspecies, and stuff like that, you understand we are all vertebrates, right? We have a fucking spine.
Right.
like, That's a column one.
Right.
After that, you have a column number two, and that would be maybe you
Mammals
know
and
that
reptiles.
better than I do, and that would be mammal. Okay, then you have mammals. Mammals are another column. So you have vertebrate, and after that you goes into mammals, and you